Coming from the Truspace, we ain't entertaining neighbors. I don't give a fuck what you say. Found the universal coochie, planting seeds and birds fruit. Now I'm really looking juicy. Welcome to the Truspace. Yeah, bitch, welcome to the Truspace. Welcome to the Truspace. Yeah, bitch, welcome to the Truspace. What's good, y'all? My name's Open Book. This is my partner.
Hey guys, this is Hearth. Welcome back to Truspace.
Yeah, and we just wanted to make a video going on about um, how astrology can give you a balanced mind. So, yeah, let's go in on that. How do you think knowing and learning astrology, incorporating it into your life, can help balance out your mind?
First, you need to know that before you get into astrology, you will experience oppositions, trine, and squares in your immediate life. You just don't notice it. You might
Yeah,
start working and you might meet this guy. You might have some tension. You might find out you guys have a planet or a star squaring each other. You might not like this guy and you guys have find an opposition and things like that. So when it comes to learning when it comes to astrology and how we utilize it to learn balance, a lot all the signs and everything the way it's set up to counterbalance itself the same way how as you experience life, you go through scenarios and you meet people who balance out your energies, which play out as above so below the zodiac wheel aspect, which what we're gonna get into because you're gonna learn in astrology how the all the signs are they could be all they have an opposition and things like that. So that's very important. But understand that also that the way to create balance is to create opposition because what you're doing is basically bringing two complete energies from different places and bringing them together, which is a balance. But we call it here an opposition, and we give it a negative connotation, which is kind of fucked up. But
yo, that is fucked up when you think about
that
it like that.
isn't that backward?
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. That
Yeah,
we call it oppositions.
and basically things like that. But as we dive deeper and deeper into the videos, we'll break it more deeper. Yeah.
Exactly, because there's a school of thought calling the 12 zodiacs six zodiacs, so that there's actually six with two polarities to each, and that goes along the lines of like what you're saying in terms of the oppositions, and that's one of the things that really help balance you out in terms of polarity. Like we probably mentioned it before, so much people think things are either or. It has to be this. It's black and white. This is why most of the niggas racist. This is why you a closet racist. Most
Exactly.
of the time, if you think something's black and white, or you just write something off, even if you don't know about it, but because
Hmm.
you don't believe in it, it doesn't exist. Like those type of mentalities leads to it's not black and white. There's a whole spectrum that things can remain on, and when you understand polarity, now you understand where you are and how you can avoid extremes. So much people just leap to extremes for justifiable reasons too. A lot of the times it's merely just defense mechanisms because we feel attacked in certain ways, or a feeling of a lack in certain things, or an overabundance or too much of certain things, so we go to an extremes, get rid of everything or get rid of it all, or overindulge and try and get up. But yeah, that polarity aspect, astrology really instills that polarity aspect, because if you're going to talk about Pisces, you can't just, yeah, Pisces is flunked out and that's kind of all across the board, but it's a spectrum of flunked out. So there's a spectrum where it can play out very positively and where it can play out very negatively. But if you're just stuck in, oh, flunked out is a negative connotation, or being flunked out, that's actually dreaming. It's only a positive connotation.
Hmm.
Quickly set off your access and go into a realm of thought or that is unbalanced, and then all of these things start manifesting into your life. Then you're like, what the fuck is where's all of this coming from? Because you didn't understand polarity.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And like one thing you're gonna notice, the way things are set up, it is set up in that way, but through us learning that, we could come up with like way of speakings and way of utilizing words where we could combine different words that represent opposite energies and shit like that. Dreaming, dealing with Pisces energy, subconscious realm, that energy in itself, that's in the yin realm behind the scene. That's a state of being, an experience for yourself. But then when we speak about it, we could use words to describe that energy and things of that nature and put it into rap songs and things like that. But now we could combine words from different opposite. Basically, we could take words that deal with practicality and details, and then take words that deal with dreams, imagination, 12 house related things, and then combine them into sentences and basically say these things make sense and things like that. But in the modern uh, way we speak, it's not set up like that. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, with the lack of correspondence, right?
Exactly, exactly. You would connect that working hard on your dreams, because you would say your dreams don't make sense, and you would say working hard deals with something else completely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But you don't even understand that polarity. Look at what you're saying, and then how working hard can exist without Pisces, the dream aspect, and all of that. So it's that polarity. So you're chasing the one, yeah, devaluating the other. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Mm-hmm,
Abs-
exactly. Um, uh, eh, in law and everything in society, you're gonna see how they set up everything in opposition. You know how they're gonna see basically you're gonna see things like left versus right, left wing versus right wing. But that's an opposition. All you're gonna have to do, okay, they're gonna have basically an opposite mentalities to each other, so they could divide us in two different wings. From that point, all they had to do is create parties, degrees, starting with the extreme polarities to basically to see basically where they could walk us into in within the spectrum. But they're controlling the two polarities, and like we're getting caught up in the whole opposition, and we don't even know it, and
that's
things like
that's the
that.
danger.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with like a black versus white, or things like that, like simple concept. They put everything in opposition, so like it gets like basically to confuse you.
It's bare confusing. Yeah, exactly. Just like with the left and right, for sure. With that lack of awareness, you don't understand that it's a spectrum and that you have to utilize both sides based off of what things are. Like, and it's funny, and Jews are so good at doing that, or traversing that, because look at Judaism, modern Judaism, let's say that the advent of is Israel, this, aren't they so liberal, aren't they so democratic, they're starting to become tolerant to LGBTQ and all of that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's against the traditions that they had previously
Mhm.
had held up high in certain aspects. So but they are so conservative. Jewish people in their society, and how they run things, are very conservative first, in terms of keeping things internal, keeping things within the family, supporting our own stuff before we start expanding. Then we can help out. Yeah, yeah, let's fund this. Yeah, let's give money to these people, and foreign policies, and all of those different things. But and look at how those people dominate all fact because they understand the spectrum, or even on a subconscious level, they're utilizing both, where they're not, for some reason, but somehow, like, for other everybody else, you're forced to stay on one. Well, you think that you're forced to stay on one, but what I'm trying to say is, look at how you can utilize both sides to your benefit, but you get lost in not forgetting about polarity, and you think that because you're on certain side that you have to be a certain side, that you can't utilize both. But look at how this one group of people can teeter totter and manifest the
Mhm.
best of it.
And this is the whole debate with them against Jesus, because what they're basically what Christians are trying to do is to take one person and then trying to exalt him, but that almost creates an opposition to you and things of that nature, because that's a story supposed to be about you
Yeah,
and things like that. And you will see how in Jews culture, obviously the way it plays out in history and through their society, it means on a mental level, or at least on a writing level, they are more structured than people. And just think about how much Jewish mysticism books they have, how much material they have that leads all the way to building actually very structured societies, uh, ways of maneuvering through the world and politics that people might think it's illegal, might make people think jealous. But since you have created a lot of these politics tactic and invented and things like that, you go basically walk the left hand path, and you don't have to uphold everything. Basically, basically tell the citizen fight for, pick your rights and things like that. But we were right there with the basically right energy, and then we did with spring season. So you're upholding things, you're giving birth to things, but you don't know what you're upholding. Ask a person, like, what is your rights? What are you upholding? And what who gave you your rights? Like, you never asked that question. They came from what? The winter season. Like, you don't know the whole story.
wow, that's
And you
true.
don't even know your ability to take your left hand path within like the court, aka detach, or learn how not to associate with that structure.
Hmm. Or how to incorporate more of your individual self within that structure, or how to compromise within that structure. We're always so quick to talking about the separation, and this is what we're talking about with polarity. But maybe you could rock them to sleep in terms of balancing the energies.
I was hearing this Jewish rabbi. He said that Yahshua or Jesus did not curse the scribes or the Pharisees. He actually told people you guys should learn the way they utilize the power of Moses, basically the power of the word. You should understand the law. You should understand what they're talking about, because if you could maneuver within their world and not get crucified.
Exactly. That.
Mhm.
Well, in
But
hindsight, right?
yeah, and shit like that. But people view that story with characters as being an opposite, but in totality, what they're trying to do is balance each other out. So it's not really an opposition. If anything, they were trying to save Jesus.
Hmm. Hmm. I get what you mean. Yeah, that's very interesting. It goes to show that even reminds me of the polarity of esoteric and exoteric. Isn't that a pole too that we get lost in? Either it's everything's mystical and nothing's solid and real. Everybody's spirituality and love and energy and all of that, but nothing's manifesting in your life. But you're still talking about spirituality, energy, and all of these concepts. But then you get so stuck into the materialism, or Jesus was actually here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Into that esotericism.
Hmm. Hmm.
Astrology helps you see right through all of that.
And like that, the separation between the subjective realm and the objective realm, you could see it with how words could affect that to a large percentage, because right in the subjective realm behind the scene means something else than physically and things
Yeah,
like that. Doing a left in behind the scene realm means something different than doing it in the physical realm and things of that nature.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So if you don't have a way, and then it kind of does, and without that understanding of polarity, how the hell are we ever going to balance, separate our rainbow? I like. That's what Dolo talks about, separating your rainbow in terms of when you put all the colors together, it turns into like blackness to darkness, or like an amalgamation or accumulation of everything. So that's where
Mhm.
a lot of people's feelings and emotions, when people are talking about black being bad and stuff like that, that's where it's being drawn from. But it really just means accumulation.
You know what? I think everybody hears that term because they're black in the mental realm due to the accumulation of all their thoughts.
You goddamn right. You goddamn right. So there's a real essence that's behind that, and why they would hate black people to a certain degree too.
that leads into the point of like, why would some black people, darker skinned people associate themselves with Europeans or white people? Because inside they feel they're lighter, they have a lighter mentalities, they're not so emotionally attached to things. I like that.
Niggas used to call me an Oreo for some reason. And it's just like I don't know. I was just around a bunch of dumbass hood niggas, you know what I mean? So it's like you really couldn't. I'm
Hmm.
like, am I really that white? I'm like, yo, I don't have the accent. I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Hmm.
But yeah, I get what you mean. And have understanding that line of polarity, and we all get so lost at that and not realizing that is something behind it, just like with that black feeling, but it's accumulation. And you can look at it as your chakras, like say your energy field or the amalgamation of the energy that you are digesting from the world around you, represented through say the different frequency bands of colors in the aura, just for reference for you to see how this stuff would work. All of your chakras blending together, not knowing what is what, and what energy is going to create a black blob that's going to cause congestion that eventually leads to disease within the body. But imagine if each individual one of your chakras was working independently, or not independently. Obviously, they're all working in tandem, but functioned on its own. You knew what issues you had that related to your root chakra in terms of survival, fear, and security. You know, feeling safe and vitality in general. You don't confuse vitality with your heart being open, or your relationships and stuff like that. But with that black blob, you would connect those two, if you get what I mean. But each of them would run and understand their individual selves completely, just like how, look at you in your life, you don't act the same given in every environment. In different environments you may act the same or channel different energy. That's just how it is in people's
Hmm.
lives. But so much people, I would ask them certain things like, how do you feel? I don't know. Or what do you want past this? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And it's like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? How do you not know? And it's fine to a certain degree to not know, but that's the real question. What are you doing? Why are you putting so much energy into certain things without knowing? And it's due to that not being able to separate the rainbow, and that's what causes the confusion. You don't realize that certain areas of your life are tangled in with other areas of your life, and that they need to be separated for you to have a clear perspective to know what is what. And astrology does that with the houses, with the signs, the different areas of life, and then with the planets and how it divides these subconscious realms of reality. Just like what you're talking about with the objective and the subjective. Isn't that exactly what astrology goes and
Hmm.
captures and puts into a comprehensible system? Being objective about the objective reality that we have so we can have a level of equilibrium.
And on top of that, it provide the physical symbols on the sky for you to use as a reference point of what to know of what's happening inside of you. So like that makes it the perfect tool between like connecting your inside esoteric and then your exoteric, what's outside of you, and seeing how different basically how different esoteric season feel within you, how does hotness feel within you, and then how does hotness feel when you go experience it outside, because that will correspond into many different events, like maybe fights, getting passionate, and things like that, just the whole energy. But physically it will play out through multitude of things. It can get filtered through that first, second, third dimension, all the physical shapes and forms. But in the behind the scene realm, the fourth, fifth, sixth dimension, the mental realm, it's a one energy, but it gets filtered in through multitude of things. And that is this is why astrology is important, because it provides correspondence for you to know like kind of what's happening, and to understand like kind of, that's why everybody wrote a story, that's why everybody wrote an allegory, because that's what your life feels like a cycle, like an allegory. You keep going on the same wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And how do you
and,
represent a
and,
virtue better than a story?
and the more you go through it, the more aware you become of it. It's almost like when you're a kid, you're not aware as not as aware of your body, but as you get older, you go through your monad, you go through your 360 cycle, you get aware more of your
And you
body,
master
able to
your
utilize it
limbs
in
to a
different
degree.
ways. It's the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. By understanding those correspondence on a lighter way. Absolutely. And it's
Hmm.
also um attention. What astrology gets you to look at, just like what Harith was explaining, the behind the scenes and creating a system of correlation for you to understand these things. Now, we're trying to explain how this not only is the system 100% accurate and efficient. We're trying to bring your
Hmm.
mind and to look how it orientates your mind and changes your perspective of the world and your entire neural pathways and chemistry and how you go about the world. The more you think this way and embed these things and practice astrology in a certain way, you start understanding all the different factions of life and how they interact with each other.
Mm-hmm. Like a great, like a great, like if you want to think about it, if we start about it, like think about Aries, the first house. It deals with like initiating vision and imagination and being passionate and aggressive about it. But when we look at that energy, all of us can initiate a vision and imagination. But not everybody is willing to fight for their own vision and imagination, aka stay ahead of everybody, aka use your head and shit like
Hmm.
that. This is why why this is why you see a concept of head everywhere. This is why like guys will be like, I want
Hmm.
head, but they don't get where that concept comes from, or I want brains and things like that.
And then,
But that's what and shit like that. But beyond that concept, you could take that Aries energy, you could see how it plays out in a uh, like a biology sense, because it plays out through your brain and nervous system. Because when you close your eyes, what are you able to do? Initiate different visions and imagination. And I'm pretty sure if you have a lot of fire or maybe a lot of water too, your visual game is way different than air signs and earth signs and things of that nature. So that
but the air
definitely
signs and earth
can
sign
help.
probably had deep perception in terms of you didn't notice the certain detail in the room or whatever, but the air sign and the earth sign did. But they wouldn't maybe necessarily have the internal world that you have, be able to hold on to an image or a thought like that.
Exactly. So like that's from like we said that's from a biology point of view. But now let's look at some like the Eastern continent from a historical point of view. What does it deal with? It deals with concept of war, fighting, individuality. It deals with sacrifice. Pluto is exalted there, so a lot of extreme power control issues happen there that no one knows about, and things like that. Saturn is debilitated in the Aries archetype, so there's less restrictions on boundaries, there's less law, there's less government involvement and things like that. It might even lead like to a lesser economy and things like that too.
Hmm.
Venus falls here too, so like there's a lack of love and things like that. This is why people from the Eastern continent may not know how to express love like in the way it's supposed to be in the Western continent, where you speak about, you show your appreciation, like through concept of a liberalism and shit like
Yeah,
that, like saying thank you, being polite, that all that Libra, like liberal is Libra energy. That's seventh house. You don't get liberal without Libra.
that's that's dead ass. They're so, and then this is where the indecisiveness comes from, right? Like, look at all the liberal or democratic leaders are the ones that are more stagnant. Those are the ones that rock you to sleep. Oh yeah, we're gonna move forward. We're gonna do all of these things, different types of things. But then the Republicans, maybe cause certain. They actually do what they're gonna say, but it's always the same old. Tried and true. You know what I mean? Those type of things, which is interesting.
Mhm. Look at technology and how it's utilized through the power of the first house. They create televisions, and what does it do? That's literally just a portable brain and nervous system to play visions towards you. They literally call it vision.
Tell lies to you. Tell lies to your vision. Absolutely.
So imagine being a kid and growing up with that technology for a long time. You might even develop the ability of you come up with your own imagination, your own nervous system energy to separate yourself, to have your own way of viewing things, because you let television be your head for a very long time.
Absolutely, and this is exactly what happened to all of us, and this is where we get lost because we don't realize like your whole television set is acting like your pineal gland, your own internal organs. Because isn't this how images are generated within the body? It's not. We tend to think that it's light directly hitting our eyes and we're perceiving what we're seeing based off of that reflection, but it's not. Past your eyes, this light gets turned into electrical impulses that get sent to the back of your brain that uses sight, smell, sound, and all your different senses to orchestrate an internal picture that gets projected like that. Where do you think the idea of the television came about? And look how much power television has had on society by mimicking an ability that we had innately. This is the power we're trying to show you of correspondence, of how deep this stuff can go. And
And then And just think about the fact, if you know that that's the energy of the television or creating an image come from Aries, the first house. Imagine if you could develop that internally within yourself, then you could become the main image, the main show that everybody watch. Because literally that's how big your flame is.
exactly, you can start utilizing these correspondences for yourself. Exactly. And start orchestrating things within your life. And you just have a higher level of understanding. Like, look at everybody talking about Kanye right now without mentioning that he's a Gemini. How can I don't see how we can have a conversation before that's mentioned.
If we make it a rule to include everybody's zodiac sign before they speak and let them put their natal chart out, everybody will be so compassionate. People will be forgiving. People will be like, it makes sense. Let him be.
Dead ass. You have to say your moon sign
But
too, though. You have to say
but
your moon sign too. It's like your pronoun. If they did instead of
yeah, yeah.
pronouns, your sun and moon.
Like if we said a government, I would demand you to show me your entire
A
natal
lie.
chart. We're not doing sun sign,
It's
moon
on your
sign, not the entire
ID.
thing.
Ah,
You're gonna show me your Pluto, your Saturn, everything.
that's facts. If you're a cop, if you on your license registry, if the cop scanning your license, entered your license, and pull up your information and sees that you're an Aries, or so, maybe they should approach you different, bro. They just approach that nigga a little different. You prevent the whole situation from coming going down.
If anything, then they could like also use that in the court system and like mold a treatment that specifically work for you. Maybe sending you as an Aries to a prison would not work. Maybe that's gonna lead to more
Yeah,
Aries things and shit like that. There are already probably multiple Aries there, multiple fire signs and things like that. So we could even use that in a very highly. We could use that actually everywhere.
absolutely.
You can even use that in when a patient look for his like what do you call it, prescription, his natal chart could give us more accuracy in fixing his prescription and things like that. That would actually increase the pharmaceutical game, the hospitals, like to the next world. Like literally, like imagine timing surgeries with moon cycles, sun cycles, and like being aware of the space we are in as we're operating in this human organ body system that correlate with the sign that the moon is in, that correlate with this time, and then we have all this equipment and these tools that correspond to
Yeah,
that energy.
absolutely. That would be brilliant. But then we'll get into an equilibrium, and what hospitals will have to downsize to a degree, or all of the expenditure that goes on that degree, because we'll have more people recovering, more people being rehabilitated, more people coming off of the medicine because we did it the right time, and things ended up becoming more successful because they were more aligned and in more of a balanced state. So much of that mentality.
Mm,
Yeah.
Me and CJ were actually speaking about how like Capricorn, the 10th house energy, which play out through the government, could take over a lot of things naturally because due to the Saturn rulership and things like that. But if we understand how like all these things work, trine, squares, opposition, we could prevent how certain, say, part of the governments would uh get out of control and things like that because we know which part of the energy they correspond to. So if we build a country, I know ahead what this department what do you correspond to, and I know what type of energy you bring into, and I know what they could lead into and things like that, so we could set up system ahead of time and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And this is why the entire almost history, or like when you study like shadow government and different like civilizations, is just them morphing their empire and trying new stuff. Like you could argue America is just the same thing as the
It is
British
the same
Empire. It
thing.
just tried
It's
something
Rome.
else.
Yeah. But literally the same architecture
It is the
down
same
to
thing.
the down to the architecture.
It's the same thing and things like that. So once you look at it like that, um you can't get lost. Like
And this is
literally.
where astrology teaches you. Just even looking at the circle. This is what we're trying to get across to you. We're looking at a circle continuously and understanding a cyclical phase starts transforming your mind into thinking holistically, to start thinking cyclically. You know, now you're starting analyzing patterns and seeing the underlying patterns that are
Mhm,
behind things, and this leads you to a balance. Every time I
mhm,
do this, I get this type
mhm,
of outcome. Maybe if I add more of this, it'll balance out these things.
mhm.
This is exactly the type of line of thinking you get.
I heard that someone said, I can't remember, but he said that the highest form of intelligence is the ability to recognize patterns. And I imagine if you're able to recognize patterns for other people and then show them how to break it. Like you're out of the matrix, you enter the matrix for them, and then you like open the door for them. Like you
That's
the
funny.
kingmaker.
In the Matrix, when they were in the Matrix, and they would have the operator stay behind and tell them what's going on. It's literally just a screen of code coming down, and they can read the code to a degree, and they know that Neo's fighting Smith, and that Smith is multiplying by reading the fucking code, by recognizing the patterns and stuff like that.
And like think about the patterns and the codes. If you get really good at astrology and understand how each energy corresponds to different body part, and understand how this energy correspond, why does this person look the way he is based on the geographical location that he come from, based upon the stars that it lines up with and the energy that it deals with, then you won't get lost in the concept of race, but you would understand why everybody
Yeah.
is different. You understand why a person would have a darker hue. You understand why a person would have a lighter hue and things like that. You would understand what's the benefit of living in a hotter versus a colder environment. What's the benefit of living in an environment that's closer to water and things like that. Like it goes in so many multitude of ways. You're gonna have to go on your own journey to experience all these correspondings and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look at how people would even, like, you would run into people, say, that would be so enthusiastic or want to go cast a person's chart, and maybe a person would be like, um not wanting a person to do that, or thinking that you're putting them in a box, or that that's not accurate, or whatever it is. The lack of accuracy, fine, whatever. But look at people just going off of suggesting of meeting a person, and you want them to define you just off of that. Like the idea of, oh, I met this person, I had an in general introduction, I've seen some of their personality. I'm not going to come to some general overarching conclusion of who this person is. The astrologer wants
Mm,
to see the behind the scenes energy of the underlying energy that is behind this person. Meanwhile, the average person would jump to conclusions. And because this person expressed anger at a certain moment, this is now an angry person. And somehow you think that this is a better system then look behind the scenes. So even if, say, astrology wasn't accurate, look on how it is shaping your mind to look at things, even though it's 100% accurate. Look, it's shaping your mind to consider the behind the scenes and to have a starting point that there's information that you don't understand wholeheartedly. So you have to go and look at a reference point for you to understand these things. Just that line of thought alone would save you so much. Instead of jumping to a conclusion, even if you're not using astrology, you might use a reference point, your own experiences. Someone else's, use a reference point instead of jumping to these conclusions and saying this person's this person's that. Like, if you
Because you all, because you're gonna look at the term information. It's
understand.
information, and then the last one is ions, like inform ions and things like that. Because that's what, like, what that's what we're studying with astrology and things like that. We're trying to understand how light move, but light move when it comes to mentally speaking, it moves through light is our thoughts and feelings. But how do we see how you move your light? Based on your ability to articulate yourself and utilize your word, your sword. But your word and a sword is based upon your fire and water, your imaginations and visions and things like that. So um, one of the things that astrology does, it corresponds each letter sound with an energy. So we could understand that energy deeper, or how that energy, how the sound correlate with like instruments, and how does this instrument piques our curiosity or activate a certain organ more, or because this sounds obviously connect with this organ more, and this organ connects with this star system and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And then look at like the essence behind astrology is not, and it's funny, like people have a hard time wrapping their mind around there being an influence from the planets and how that directly, the planets that are some distance away, affect them. Let me ask you this: would Earth be in its same orbit and position and have the summer winter season if Jupiter wasn't there? Would it do the same if Saturn wasn't there? Would it do the same if Mars, Venus, and any other planet weren't there? So their very existence and the position that they are in and the way that they move, the way that they do move, sustains our reality completely. And it's crazy. Most of us are still in like Newtonian physics ways of thinking, which isn't bad. Like none of these things are bad. They just need, you need to understand polarity, when to use which, and to balance these things. But we're still stuck in Newtonian physics, aka that's the physics that allowed us to use mechanical energy. It explained to a degree how the planets move. It explains how you can make an engine, how you can make certain thing, how we know what time you're going to get to a certain place if you're flying, because we know the speed, velocity, and the weight and the distance travel and all of this different type of stuff. We're stuck in these mindsets.
Mm,
So say somebody has a vision of somebody falling down the stairs or booking their toe, and you go and call the person, be like, oh, don't worry, you're don't, watch out for the stairs. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm not even anywhere near stairs right now. And you're like, wow, I discounted my experience because you're still stuck in the Newtonian thinking in terms of that linear progression. Einstein already proved with the theory of relativity that time can move at a different speed based off of position and relevance. The what was it? What is it called? Relativity, based off of relativity.
mm, mm. Just the theory of relativity is just based on the concept of like two 2 points relating to each other. Number two, duality. That's it. And just look at how one of the things that you gotta pay attention to, how people in history or like famous people, just they take basic concept that's associated with energies that everybody could use, and they build on it and things like that. For example, Jordan Peterson has a book called The 12 Steps for Life and things like that. And I'm pretty sure it's somehow connected to the 12 zodiacs and things like that. and like you gonna see these numbers 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 7 having 8 and things like that. You're gonna see how people utilize how each of these symbols they mean something, but then they could expand on it. But this talking about the energy itself, but you don't know that you're searching for this energy that you could tap into in your own way, but you're getting confused because this person is putting all this jargon, all these words, his own oral tradition behind it, and not giving you the system that he's
Exactly.
getting it from.
Exactly. And that's where we reduce down to with
Mhm.
English and that alphabet where everything is
Ex-
abstract.
mhm. This is why rappers love what do you call it, Jewish lawyers, because they get them out of troubles, because the whole United States concept is built on like kind of Jewish type of mentality and things like that, the Ten Commandments, and then you get the Constitution, and then you got the common law and the uncommon law, aka the law that no one knows about. We got the oral tradition and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, then continue
Mm-hmm.
writing and shit like that.
I get what you mean. Maybe like in that
Mm,
situation, the rappers are the water, in the Jewish lawyers, the fire, or something like that. Or
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
both do with
You,
metaphors, and then behind the
you,
scenes where they go about it in different ways.
Yeah, yeah, I would say the rappers are more on the side of the fire and water, while the Jews are still using fire and water,
Yeah,
them, but
yeah,
they're
yeah.
more air and earth. Yeah, but you see, we're still speaking about polarities. We're speaking about
Exactly.
spectrums.
And this that leads you to the understanding.
Hmm.
Like it's funny, like what we were talking about just a little bit before on Hitler, and it's funny. I love Kanye. I wish he was more educated, bro. Like I really do. I really do. But
Hmm. Hmm.
but then he
Hmm.
probably
A
wouldn't be
hundred
doing what
percent.
he's doing. But or he had someone around him. But him
That's
saying
also
I
facts.
love Hitler, like people have to understand um
Hmm.
that even though, say, not defending and saying that he was not a bad person, but how is that the whole story? Does the would a German call him a bad person? Even if it was, let's say it just was to a German that he would express this kind side. But if he expressed that kind side, he is not just an evil person. He also has, if you're a father, if you're, you know what I mean, and you have a family that you want to protect it to a certain degree, it's like you have integrity. Was he the type of person to go and lie? Like would he lie to his buddy? These are the things that I want you to, maybe his ideals opposed yours, and yeah, go ahead and butt heads and go against it, but don't try it and limit, and you're getting lost in that polarity as if it's not a spectrum. You're getting lost in the extremes, and then now you don't understand how that
Hmm.
energy is created. You don't understand the energy at all.
And like you wouldn't understand the fact that he's almost like showing everybody also they're hypocrite, and he's actually like almost like living the Jesus word,
Wait,
showing
wait, wait,
love to everybody,
Kanye
and that
or Hitler?
no, 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 Kanye showing love to the Jews, and then showing love to the Nazis and things like that. He's eradicating the concept of opposition. But to you, you think it's an opposition, but the opposition was what
And then where
placed
are
in your
you
mind.
if you're opposing someone who's loving everybody? You a hater ass nigga. You on the bench over there hating. If you get mad at someone loving,
Is lit. It's literally about positioning. And when you hear certain thoughts and feelings, they put you in certain different positioning.
absolutely, absolutely. It's crazy
Hmm.
how things get lost, but that's what we were saying. Where he right now he's being a vessel. He's not even conscious. Like I swear to God, the things that he said. uh, but he's being a vessel for God to just to put certain things in our awareness, and based off of it's how he's saying it and coming off of these things, like starting that conversation or that outlook of Hitler. Like what I'm telling you guys, why are you supposed to hate Hitler? Why is he just evil? And if these things were true, why don't you study his life? Why haven't you read his book so that we can prevent that from
Mhm,
happening? But all we do is label it and throw it away and pretend that we understood the
mhm.
accumulation of it. And that's the antithesis of astrology. Astrology goes in and to unpack what is hidden.
Because like then you could go into like Hitler, you could look at his natal chart, then you could understand more about his deeper aspect, why he did what he did before, without the media, without people adding words to him and things like that. You might even get into certain mental spaces and certain physical positioning or certain illness like he was in and things like that. So and not only that, you could study the time frame, the transit, Saturn, Uranus, Pluto, what they were doing, what they were squaring, to understand the main event. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, Hitler was like almost like he was almost like the Jesus of the German or some shit like that. And then you could understand,
Dead ass figures.
and then you hold, and then you be, and then you be looking at the other people who oppose him, and then start to study them. I might even get to their natal chart, and then you might figure out one thing: everybody's having one big light battle.
Star Wars
Star
at
Wars.
that point, absolutely. Yeah,
But you gotta realize the way it's translated to you through words, jargon, and not understand the behind the scene realm. Uh, it's very it does not make sense. Like you wouldn't correlate like when people speak about Palestine, they wouldn't correlate to the Aries, the first house, aka your temple. This is why they always attacking Palestine, and this is why you always talk about save Palestine, save the temple. The temple is important. Why? Because you feel like there's something is important about the temple, your head, your first house, and things like that. And yeah, basically, so it's big. Like the conscious community is the biggest light battle you will ever see your entire life. If you stay too long in the conscious community, you develop a lot of Luciferian ideas that will accumulate into you developing like a dark body. You getting lost
and
in
in
the light.
terms of the separation type energy, you getting lost in the light. That's what they're forgetting, that even though that the light had came from God or a divine place, it came with the purpose of separation. So everybody's having their own different concepts of, okay, maybe we just look at the bad or the good, and we look at the derivatives of light, or they just look at the it's looking at the trying to look at one, the bad or the good, but not understanding the polarities that all of these things. And that's why I love Islam and Muslims, because to a degree they understand that it's all God, it's all Allah. You know what I mean?
That's how they submit.
It's
They say
all up
fuck
to
it.
Him, and
Mhm.
I understand that to a degree, and you submit, but that type of mentality and way of thinking, just like how we're telling you, utilizing astrology leads to a better equilibrium in terms of you step more into that observer role instead of you step into more of a neutral role, so you can actually start noticing these patterns and stuff like that. Whereas, say, if you're being too passive, things go by, and you're trying to be too active, you're trying to be too forceful. But astrology really knocks all of that out of you. Even you just trying to read an aspect and trying to understand how these two energies can clash. Look what's going on in your mind, and how you're developing. You're looking at the nature of a human nature, a human virtue, and how that goes toe to toe with another human virtue. There's so many different avenues that can go, and just even you contemplating that, you're developing a higher level of knowledge on both sets of virtues by how they have interacted with each other. But not using astrology, now you don't understand this interaction. Now you don't learn anything about the two virtues. It's just a black blob of congested mess that you really can't make sense out of, that you really can't start to understand. But it really helps you start to piece out the separate areas of your life and how they start to correspond with each other. And it's not all hocus pocus. It's based off of real events that are observable within yourself. And it's crazy the level of correspondence, like the fact that you even have to prove, or people think astrology's up for belief. When somebody makes a claim like there's medical astrology, and that say Aries corresponds to something in the body, or that Taurus corresponds to something in the body, you can fucking check that and look at how in depth it goes. How
Mm-hmm.
Taurus hormones, sextiles, um, cancer, your lymph, your digestive system, your
Digestive
lymph nodes, and
system.
your immune system.
Yeah.
Of course, it's gonna take the hormones
Mm-hmm.
to use in concordance with your immune system. Your hormones give the opportunity for your immune system to
Mm-hmm.
cleanse the body, and cleansing the body gives the opportunity for
Mm-hmm.
your hormones to work more effectively and to provide more stability. How can you see that sextile that actually corresponds in the body, and then go and say that that's nothing, that the correspondence? At least admit that you don't know what's going. That is freaky. You know what I mean? At least admit that.
Mm-hmm. a- a- and then you could understand like these energies on a biology level. Then look at, okay, Islam, they use a lot of Taurus, the moon is exalted there, and you can see how throughout their society they're big when it comes to value, stability, family value, stability. That's Taurus second house. And then we got Cancer, that's home, family, domestic issues. So right now that's a sextile, so it's easy for them to see opportunity like that. So you can see how like society play
Yeah,
these energies themselves, like uh,
Jews
and
in
things like that,
Capricorn,
basically.
and then look at how the economic policies, like what we were talking about before, how Muslims, maybe more so corresponding with Taurus, the stability aspect of it, the more personal aspect of monetary and value, they would not charge interest. Traditional flat rate, Taurus, stability, slow, steady growth.
Hmm.
Capricorn
Hmm.
is the
The
farmers,
farmers,
exactly, understanding the connection between
who are the
the
farmers rebelling
product
against?
and the monetary system. Capricorn's just using the money, it's just using things, maybe it can manage and administrate these things, and allows, say, the farmer or the Taurus, the person who's doing stability, to have more opportunity, more industry, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, they're utilizing the different concepts. So look at people who fixate on certain levels of energy and how that manifests into their lives. In Judaism, you can do usury, which is charging interest at exorbitant rates. Whereas, and you can see how that's a Capricorn way
Mhm.
of thinking, because the little essence of Capricorn is I use. That's the word, is I use. So clearly, that mentality
But
would fall into that negative polarity more than Taurus would have a different negative polarity.
even like Jews like that, they would like there's a law that prevent them from like charging interest to another Jew, and things like that. They wouldn't charge interest to
Oh, they
themselves, but they
quickly
would
turn
charge
cancer,
interest to
right? They
you.
quickly turn into a cancer. Oh, it's family. It's home.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
wouldn't do that.
yeah, and
I
things
wouldn't
like
do
that.
that.
But look at the term like interest and how it has like a double connotation. The way you thought interest, you just think like things like interesting, but you never thought how interest could be applied to you.
Interesting. That's interesting. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. 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 You.
Yeah.
Oh, you got something interesting, yo.
Yo, that's how you
Mm-hmm.
know we're run by some Capricorn type system. The fact that we even say some shit like that, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. A
Yeah, for
hundred
sure.
percent. A hundred
So
percent.
yeah, astrology really does give you that holistic feeling, or that holistic aspect, and you see how. Look at us even talking about Jews and Muslims and stuff like that. When you start using astrology and you're an astrologer, you separate yourself from all of those arguments in terms of religious ideology, color, and all of that. And I'm not calling out, say, Jewish people based off of the essence of a race or certain things, calling out based off of correspondence with a specific virtue and a way of thinking. And it's not limited to Jews. We're saying it's Capricorn. We're all falling up under that. So if you get what I mean, you have a behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, somebody may see the Capricorn energy, Kanye, and then go and say, "Oh, it's the Jewish people. Oh, it's the Jewish people." But without having the correspondence and understanding that it goes back to Capricorn,
Mm-hmm.
now he's stuck because okay, fine, say it is Jewish people because they do say some level of them do correspond with that. What is he gonna do about it? How is he going to move about it? You see how some steps he made were in the wrong direction and he got the backlash? Imagine if he understood Capricorn, how you would go about it. You would mitigate damage and loss based off of the negative and positive polarities of that spectrum. And then you would have a greater level of understanding, which is what he's missing out on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you're just gonna realize one thing: these Jews, they just upheld Shabbat, Saturn energy, just
That's
more
it.
than you. That's it. That's the only difference. This might hurt, like this might have heard the word more than you, more often in their life. So that word itself corresponds to something. Like I'm pretty sure if you grew up in like regular, like you never like, if anything, you would associate Saturn with Satan in like Western society. To just think about you viewing restrictions, boundaries, responsibility, longevity as bad, negative, as something to run away from. But Jews like, oh, it's every 7 day at the end of the week. That's a crazy concept. That
and then
alone,
and
like you
then
can see how
look
it
at what
sets them
that
apart.
that sets you up, and look at the broader spectrum of view. Say if you're centering on Saturn and you're just talking about Saturn a little bit more, look at the broader spectrum of the solar system that you have branched out into in terms of level of thought. But say niggas in the hood, we don't get past Venus. We don't get past Venus, and if we do, we get past Mars, bro. That is it. That's it. Me being a Jupiter ass nigga, they're like, nigga, what are you? Nigga, go if you want to expand and shit like that. Nigga, go, get the fuck out of there and go and expand. Or they don't really understand that energy, let alone Saturn. When you start constricting that expansion, they're like, we understand the nigga out there doing it, and that's why Jupiter, a nigga gets rich, becomes Zeus, or whatever, ascends to a higher level, expands their resources, their wealth, they leave the hood because the hood is Venetian, Martian, where it's more not as broad of a mentality.
Mm-hmm. Look at Jay Z. He is a Sagittarius too, and he corresponds to that energy of like if you're in the music business and if you make it a certain level, you meet what Zeus
Deadass.
on Mountain
Yeah,
Olympus. You join
deadass.
what
Yeah.
Rock Nation, shit like that. And even oh yo, Jay Z does have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Yo, he does extract a lot of knowledge and wisdom and things like that, yo. But you might get deep to Jay Z, like Meek Mill. You might like yo, Hove is cool, and then you might disconnect with Hove, let Hove go, because you might have found out stuff about Jay Z. You might find how Jay Z like inflated his personality, and you be like, okay, yo, this is why Nas went against him. This is why people in New York, Jadakiss, Fat Joe, 50 Cent, a lot of people were against him, yo. But like, we're not gonna judge Jay Z because we
Exactly.
understand what
And
type
the
of
role that
energy
he
he is.
played, how he even calls himself Ho, like that's crazy. Sagittarius is about spirituality and faith to a
Mm-hmm.
degree. And the philosopher energy, he talked about the
Mm-hmm.
psychology of selling drugs. He didn't rap about selling drugs. He rapped about the psychology that would make a nigga sell drugs, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. He is his first album is a reasonable doubt. That sounds like such a like
Yeah,
something a mutable
yeah.
sign
A
would
beautiful
say,
son would
yo.
have an oxymoron as their
But look at someone like Nas. He's in I believe like an Aries moon, a Virgo, sun, and things like that. But his album is called like Illmatic and things like that. It's like a it's a much more
yeah,
this guy was
yeah,
giving birth to
yeah,
something, yo.
absolutely,
Basically, yo.
absolutely. But yeah, you
Mhm.
see the level of correspondence, and this level of correspondence isn't subject to anything, on Earth at least. Which is so crazy because this is the energy that we are in. People don't understand how this can physically really affect us. That's why I really fuck with the with the naive people. I fuck with the believers. Even if you believe in some flunked out shit, even if you come to me and telling me about Jesus, Buddha, Siddhartha, whatever, you think they actually went to the moon, whatever it is that you really believe. The fact that you believe in something, I fuck with that. You're so easier to work with and to
Mm-hmm.
understand certain things, or to get the spiritual sensitivity to understand the subtle natures of things. These non-believers, stubborn.
And you get to realize your words, what you speak, let us know what star, what planet you're on. If you let me, I believe you're on Neptune. Oh, I'm thinking about death. I'm depressed. You're on Pluto. Oh, you look hard. You're thinking too much. You might be Mercury and Saturn, and things like that. You might be showing love, appreciation. Or you might be on Venus, Like, it's very easy to tell what space people are if you're familiar with all these spaces, and how they're
Exactly. And
represented
based off of
through
that
astrology.
correspondence, you can see how a person can fall into la la land when being saved within that energy, or they can manifest their dreams. Um, and then there's the potential for them to really suppress their dreams if they're not acknowledging those types of areas, depending on how you approach them within that area. That's why we're talking about that level of correspondence, but it goes so deep. The believers are so much more open to sensing those things, just like how Pisces is mutable in its water and being a little bit more receptive. So say like the non-believers or something like that, say maybe more of an Aquarius or some type of air type energy, or say Aquarius is fixed air. So it really deals with the knowledge and information that it has within a concealed container, if you get what I mean, where that may be more of the non-believer, or I know what I know and be a little bit more stuck to it, maybe more of like fixed type energy. But and then it's not bad being either way. It's just that you take less to things being a believer, but like a non-believer, it's like I have to adopt your spiritual system, which is still a spiritual system. You just use different words for it and all of these different things to explain certain things, aka I say I have to utilize science to organize certain things, but you don't realize that we're all talking about the same shit. You can explain astrology scientifically and the influence of the planets in a measurable, objective, verifiable way when you're dealing with absolute truth, when you're dealing with the true
Mm-hmm.
space. But a lot of people, because of the difference of language, and that goes to show your
Mm-hmm.
lack of understanding. Say, if you understand a disease, you know what inflammation is. You know the cause of inflammation. You know the remedy of inflammation, and all of that type of stuff. You can go to India. You can go to Indonesia. You can go to anywhere, and they maybe have a different language. They call the disease something else. They have different medications, but you, if you had a real understanding of what inflammation was, you would be able to go there of like, oh, this is how you guys tackle this problem. This is your version of this. This is what you guys call this. Oh, I see, because I understand inflammation. You're talking about the exact same thing I'm talking about. You're using different words and names and stuff like that. But because I have the actual experience and knowledge of the aspect that they're dealing with, I'm able to find the correspondence. So when we're talking about certain life situations and certain psychologies, you can clearly understand who doesn't know these things. Like people who would say astrology is not real. It's like, look at all 12 signs and how they divide themselves. So you're going to tell me that these aren't all areas of life? Like before we get into the even the scientific and experiencing all of these things, before we even get into the scientific, don't you
Mm-hmm.
literally physically feel different? Like all these people that would deny it, it's like, do you think that they take the time to subtly analyze the thoughts that are in their mind, the feelings that they feel, and the fluctuations to have that level of self-knowledge? And if you do, not one, you would have the fruits in your life to prove it. You wouldn't be bitching about not bad relationships, baby mama acting up, this going off the rails, I don't have enough money. You wouldn't be doing that type of stuff because you would have knowledge yourself, aka not that you wouldn't have a frustrating baby mama or have pockets full of money, but you'll know yourself. You'll know how you can go about and fixing it and why you even got into those situations. So you wouldn't be complaining about it the same with that level of knowledge of self. But if someone's so in tune with their internal world, I would say throw you don't even need it, my nigga. You are astrology. Whatever definition that you have with that complete level of understanding, if you developed your own words, that's fine, because beyond the words is about the energy and the correspondence. But I'm showing you how you can develop these things beyond having any physical understanding, and you can prove and verify these things beyond any scientific equipment and scientific method, just by looking at your life and experiencing your life. And we're showing you just how thinking about things holistically and what's behind the scenes and the starting points, the energies and the players that are at play, that is causing the influence of a situation to happen, is orienting your brain to looking at the world holistically, to looking at the world in a balanced way, one that you can go and incorporate yourself in and be a co-creator and be able to separate the rainbow and understand the different aspects of your life and put them together. I like the reference of you could have a basketball team with four average people and one star, and he does everything. He can dunk, shoot, rebound, he can do everything. But if you had a team of five players and one guy can shoot, one guy can dunk, one guy can rebound, one guy can do all of these things. All of a sudden, they win all the championships. Where the one with the with the superstar isn't winning any, if you get what I mean. So that's the level of separating these areas and coming to a level of self understanding before we even get into the science, which is electromagnetism, which is creating that type of effect along the lines of Wi-Fi. Like people, it's crazy how we can have Wi-Fi, and people say that will come with arguments that because these things are distant from us, that they don't have an influence on our life, when I can send your bitch ass a text from over here, anywhere in the world, and it'll go to your phone. How did that happen? Put your hand in front of your phone and block the motherfucking text. It was an energy or a love field of stuff that you can't see. It's astrology really makes you admit that you don't know things, and it puts you into the seat of the observer, the mad scientist, the seat of observing God's creation and trying to put things and to develop a level of understanding. Yeah. We can end it
Oh,
there.
you wanna end here?
Yeah,
Cause I
for
gotta
sure.
go.
But yeah, guys, that's
Mm.
how astrology can be useful, and why it can develop you a balanced mind for you. But yeah, thanks for watching. Check out our website, choosespace.biz. Check out our Instagram, choosespace_. And yeah, give us a like, subscribe. We appreciate the support. Thanks, y'all.
Take care.